You know, there are places out there, dark corners of the world, that seem like they are frozen in time. Places where silence hides stories so chilling, they were never meant to be told. But tonight, we're going to uncover some of those stories. We are not talking about the run-of-the-mill ghost tales or haunted houses. No, what we are diving into are the kinds of stories your parents would never tell you. Not because they did not want to scare you, but because they did not want you to know how real they were. Think about it. Every family has its secrets, right? Some things are just too strange, too terrifying to speak about. So, your parents might have changed the subject when you asked, or maybe they would just say it was all nonsense. But deep down, you could feel they were trying to protect you from something they never fully understood. They knew it was better to keep the past quiet because once you hear these stories, you can't unhear them. So pull the blanket a little tighter, lock the doors, and turn the lights down. After this, you will never look at New Jersey the same way again. A state that may seem ordinary at first glance, but once you dig just beneath the surface, the mysteries waiting in the shadows are enough to make your skin crawl. There is a place, tucked away in the quiet of Eatontown, where the past never truly left. Fort Monmouth, once a thriving U.S. Army base, closed down in 2011, or so they say. But the locals will tell you nothing ever truly went quiet there. There is a pulse in the air, something still humming beneath the ground. You see, when Fort Monmouth was decommissioned, they did not just pack up and walk away. No, they sealed off parts of it underground bunkers, corridors, rooms locked behind metal doors with warnings painted over in fading, rusted colors. But that is not where the story ends. A strange signal no one knows where it is coming from began picking up just months after the base shut down. A rhythm, a pulse, repeating in a pattern that should not be there. People who searched for it could hear it faintly in their radios, but no one could explain it. Was it an old military experiment malfunctioning, or was it something more? And here's the thing, this was not some glitch in the system. These signals were precise, too deliberate, and they kept coming back. Some say it is still out there, quietly listening. And maybe, just maybe, it is still trying to reach out. Even though the base is long gone, the hum, the clicks, and the pulses still whisper through the air, as if the place is alive, and whatever it is hiding does not care if you hear it. Maybe it wants you to. The whispers did not stop there. There were other reports. Residents living nearby began hearing strange things, things you could not just brush off. Baby monitors picking up strange noises at night, phones losing GPS signals when they passed certain areas. And when a group of amateur radio operators went in to investigate, they picked up a signal that led them right back to the old underground processing block of Fort Monmouth. They tried to get inside. Maps were drawn up, showing paths to places that did not even make sense anymore, stairwells that led nowhere, doors that were welded shut with no reason given. Some tried to break in, but no one got far enough. They could not. What is down there, it seems, is not meant to be found. And the government, well, they say everything's fine. They say there is nothing left. They even tried to develop the land for new projects, but delays kept coming. Zoning issues, legal roadblocks, all sorts of red tape. Locals think it is more than that. They believe the past is still alive at Fort Monmouth, and it does not want to be disturbed. Something's still hidden down there. And if you listen carefully enough, you just might hear it calling. There is something unsettling about old places, especially military bases. They are filled with secrets that go beyond just classified documents. Fort Monmouth, for example, had its share of deep, dark secrets, ones that did not just fade away when the base was shut down. The military might tell you that everything's been deactivated, that all the systems were powered down. But locals know better. They remember the strange sounds late at night, the way things never felt quite right near the perimeter of the base. In fact, even after it closed, it was like the place was still humming with life, or maybe something else. For years, the locals told stories about the eerie silence that always felt a little too loud, the way the air seemed to vibrate with a sort of low-frequency buzz. People who lived nearby would hear strange, rhythmic clicking sounds in the dead of night, coming from the direction of the old base. A static that never stopped, a hum that lingered in the background. It was as if the air itself was still transmitting something, some signal that refused to die. When the amateur radio operators first picked up that signal in 2012, they thought it was a fluke. Maybe just some old piece of military tech left behind, malfunctioning, sputtering to its last breath. But that was not the case. They came back again and again, finding the same thing, pulses. Repeated, rhythmic pulses. They did not make any sense. No one could decode the signal. It was not Morse code. It It was not anything recognizable, just this low, humming pulse repeating over and over, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for hours, but always pointing back to one location, Sector 4, a sealed-off area beneath the base. No one knew what to make of it. Some believed it was just an old transmitter left running in the background, an accidental relic of a bygone era. But others, the ones who had been monitoring these signals, began to suspect something more sinister. The pulses were too precise, too deliberate, almost like they were being sent on purpose. But by who or what, the signal never stopped. It was as if something was still waiting down there, biding its time, transmitting messages for a reason no one could understand. And that is when things started to get stranger. Urban explorers began to take note of the rumors, and many of them set out to see for themselves. What they found was far beyond what they expected. Maps drawn by hand, showing corridors beneath the base that were still intact, sealed off with welded metal doors, locked tight and left to rot. But one of them caught something interesting. A door, rusted and covered in faded warning paint. The letters DPL were spray painted over the metal. No one could figure out what it meant. What did those 3 letters stand for? No one knew. And that door, that sealed-off passage, had never been opened. So why were they sealed? What was down there that required it? Was it some kind of tech that was so dangerous it had to be hidden away forever? Or was it something darker, something that still waited in the shadows, calling out for attention? Locals swore they heard things at night. They heard whispers through baby monitors, faint voices that should not have been there. Phones would lose GPS signal in certain parts of town, and people driving by the old base would get a strange feeling, as if someone or something was watching them. These were not just random glitches or a product of faulty equipment. Something was wrong, something was off. But no one knew what it was, and no one dared to ask. Then in 2013, the strange shortwave beacon was detected. Once every few weeks, the signal would start up again, sharp, shrill, and seemingly random. It would cut out mid-transmission, as though someone or something was deliberately shutting it down before anyone could get a clear answer. There were no signals, no patterns, no identifiers. Just that eerie tone. And then silence. It became a kind of rhythm, a heartbeat in the air. Some believed it was a warning. Others thought it was an invitation. One retired operator, who had worked at the base back in its heyday, offered a chilling comment. He said there are machines under Monmouth that were never meant to stop. Then he moved away. No forwarding address, no contact. Just disappeared. But here's the real kicker. Even with all this strange activity, the government insisted that there was nothing to worry about. They even tried to sell the land for new development, but each attempt hit a wall. Zoning issues, legal roadblocks, delays in paperwork. Locals whisper that it is not an accident. It is deliberate. There is something down there, something that does not want to be found. And the powers that be, they are doing everything they can to keep it buried. Maybe forever. So while the world moves on, the signal still hums in the background, a constant reminder that some places, some secrets, refuse to be left behind. Something is still listening, and maybe, just maybe, it is waiting for someone to come back. Now, if you think that the mysterious hum of Fort Monmouth is unsettling, just wait until you hear about a town that literally vanished without a trace. Deep in the pine barrens of New Jersey, where the trees grow thick and the air is still, there used to be a small settlement called Ong's Hat. The official story is that it simply disappeared, but what happened in the dark corners of this forgotten place is far more disturbing. Ong's Hat was not always a ghost town. In the 1700s, it was a thriving little community, founded by a man named Jacob Ong. There were homes, a tavern, the usual trappings of a small town trying to make it in the wilds of early New Jersey. But by the early 1800s, it was gone. Completely gone. No records, no ruins, not even a whisper of its existence on any map. It was as if it had been erased from history. But here's where the story takes a strange turn. In the 1980s, rumors began circulating in obscure scientific circles. Pamphlets and flyers started to show up, passed between eccentric scientists and mystics, and they all spoke of something unbelievable. There were whispers of a group of rogue scientists, some ex-military personnel, and a few mysterious figures who called themselves the Institute for Chaos Studies. They were supposedly working on a project that no one else dared to touch, interdimensional travel. Yes, you heard that right. They believed they had unlocked the door to other dimensions, and Ong's Hat was the place where it was all happening. Now, most people dismissed it as nothing more than an elaborate hoax or some strange, early form of an alternate reality game. But the deeper anyone looked, the stranger things became. Documents started to surface that detailed an experiment involving a device called the egg. This was not some sci-fi fantasy either. According to the records, the egg was a portable isolation chamber, one that could manipulate consciousness itself, allowing people to shift between dimensions. Test subjects who used the device began to vanish, some reappearing with altered memories, others never returning at all. It was as if the fabric of reality itself was tearing open, and no one could control it. At first, these were just rumors, stories passed around like campfire tales. But then came the evidence. Researchers found the remains of the Institute's operations, early internet posts from the 1980s, referring to coordinates and access protocols that pointed to a specific location in the Pine Barrens. There were mentions of Ong's hat in old military documents tied to experimental remote viewing programs. And in the most unsettling twist of all, there was no official land record matching the exact coordinates that the documents pointed to. Not a single one. In the 1990s, a man named Joseph Matheny set out to uncover the truth about Ong's hat. The more he dug, the more people began to back away. Some even warned him, saying, "You are digging in the wrong place. You have already said too much." And then, as if someone wanted to make sure the truth stayed hidden, the entire online archive of Ong's hat-related documents disappeared without a trace. It was as if the universe itself was working to erase the memory of the place. To this day, there is nothing left of Ong's hat, not even the faintest trace on a map. The clearing where the town once stood remains quiet, empty. But those who have ventured there report something strange. The air is unnaturally still, and there is a feeling of being watched. Compasses do not work properly, and visitors often experience a low, ringing hum in their ears, like the space itself is vibrating. Some even report a metallic smell that lingers in the air on windless days. One explorer who visited the site described the feeling as being like the rules of space just do not work right here. There is no sign of what used to be a thriving community. No buildings, no remnants, just the eerie sense that something is still there, something that never left. Locals refuse to speak of it. In fact, they do not even say the name of the town out loud. And when they do, they whisper it like a curse, like it is something that should never be brought up again. Some still believe that the experiments worked, that something or someone from another dimension came through. It is not a ghost or a creature. It is something else entirely, something far more dangerous. When you visit the Pine Barrens, some will tell you to avoid the place altogether. They say that if you stand still long enough, you can feel the hum in the air, the same hum that visitors to the town once felt. But they warn you to keep moving. Don't stop. Don't linger. Because if you do, you might find that the door to another world is closer than you think, and once you see it, you might not be able to escape. If Ong's hat was strange, the mystery of Batsto Village is something else entirely. You have heard of ghost towns, right? Those places where time seems to stand still, and the silence becomes deafening. Well, Batsto Village in New Jersey is one of those places. Except there is something about this particular ghost town that does not quite fit the usual mold. The buildings are still standing, but the people, they have been gone for over a century. And yet, there is something about Batsto that refuses to stay silent. Batsto was once an ironworks town, a place where workers toiled day and night, producing everything from cannonballs for the Revolutionary War to smelting or from the earth beneath New Jersey. It was a bustling community in the 18th and 19th centuries. But as time passed, the town faded, and by the early 1900s, it was abandoned. The buildings decayed, the workers moved on, and the land was left to rot. But there is one building in Batsto Village that never seems to decay. It is the old furnace, an iron furnace built in 1766 that once powered the whole town. Today it stands cold and empty, a relic of a time long past. But here's where it gets weird. Despite being abandoned for decades, the furnace still makes noise. You heard that right. People who work as security guards, park rangers, even tourists who visit the village have reported hearing sounds coming from the furnace. Sounds that should not be there. Imagine this, you are walking through Batsto Village on a quiet day, maybe it is evening, and you hear a clanging sound, like metal hammering against metal. It does not make sense. The furnace is not running. It has not been fired up in years. But the sounds continue. Security guards and forest rangers have heard it too. They report hearing the rhythmic grind of machinery, the screeching of metal on metal, the sharp clang of a hammer striking an anvil. It is as if the furnace is still working, still alive, even though it has not seen fire in over 100 years. In 2009, a maintenance crew was sent to check out the furnace. They thought they had heard the sounds of a group of teenagers sneaking inside after hours. But when they called for backup and opened the gate, the sounds stopped instantly. There was no one inside. No sign of entry. The furnace was empty, cold, lifeless, and silent once again. But here's the thing, the air inside was ice cold, even though it was summer. The temperature did not make sense. Things got even stranger when a paranormal investigation team visited the site in 2015. They captured audio recordings of the clanging metal sounds, followed by a deep inhale as if something were breathing from behind the furnace's brick walls. The team said the footage was inconclusive, but one of the crew members anonymously commented online later, "We did not hear it until playback. It was louder than everything else. It was breathing in rhythm, like it was working. But there was no one there. No power running, no machinery moving. So, where was the sound coming from?" Locals have their own theories. Some say it is residual energy. Maybe the sounds are echoes of the labor that once filled the furnace. Perhaps the work that took place here, the years of hammering and grinding, have somehow been burned into the very stone of the furnace itself. Others think it is the spirit of a worker who died inside the furnace, trapped in the ore chamber and forever condemned to keep working, even after death. But there are those who believe it is something far darker, something still active beneath the surface, something that is not meant to be found. Visitors report feeling uneasy when they are near the furnace. The forest around it goes silent, not even a bird in the trees. It is as if the world around you has stopped, leaving only the furnace and its eerie clanging as a reminder that some things are still working, but not for us. One park ranger who worked in the area told a chilling story. He was walking the perimeter one evening when he spotted a second-floor window in the furnace that had never been there before. He looked away for a moment, and when he looked back, it was gone. Another ranger said the furnace seemed to vibrate with energy when he placed his hand against the bricks, as if something inside was still operating, something that had never truly stopped. But who or what was behind it? And let us not forget about the people who've reported feeling sick near the furnace. Headaches, dizziness, nausea. They say it is as if the furnace has a strange pull on them, as if it is trying to get their attention, to make them feel something, anything, to keep them close. Some people say that if you stand near it for too long, you will hear your name whispered quietly at first, then louder, until you can't ignore it anymore. But whatever the truth is, one thing's for sure, Batsto Furnace is not just an abandoned relic. It is something more. It is alive in a way that should not be possible, echoing with the sounds of a time long past, but not entirely gone. And if you are ever lucky or unlucky enough to visit, you might just hear it for yourself. Now, you might think things can't get any stranger than a furnace that still seems to breathe. But New Jersey has more than its fair share of oddities, and I am about to tell you about a place that twists time itself, a chapel that does not decay, and a group of mysterious figures that have been watching for years. You might want to brace yourself. The village of Feltville is tucked away in the Watchung Reservation, a dense, forested area not far from the bustle of the city. It was founded in the mid-1800s by David Felt, who intended to build a thriving industrial community. At first, Feltville looked like any other small town, a place where life seemed to flow like a quiet river. But time, as it often does, was not kind to Feltville. The town faded away. The houses rotted, the roads disappeared, and the land was slowly reclaimed by the forest. But there is one building that refuses to die: the chapel. Now, the thing about this chapel is that it does not seem to age. It does not rot, crumble, or decay like the rest of the town. It stands there, frozen in time, untouched by the passage of years. Tourists who visit during the day might see a quaint little building, perfectly preserved, with its simple yet charming architecture. But if you ask the park rangers what happens at night, they will go quiet. No one wants to talk about it, and for good reason. You see, there is something off about the chapel. Visitors who've stayed overnight have reported strange occurrences that make them question everything they thought they knew. The doors seem to move on their own. Sometimes they open to blank walls, rooms that were not there before. The windows flicker with lights, though the chapel has no power, no electricity. It is as if the building itself is alive, constantly shifting and rearranging. One photographer who visited the chapel claimed to have found a basement door. She took 3 pictures, but when the film was developed, the door had vanished, leaving nothing but smooth brick. She never returned to the site again. But the strangest thing happened in 2003. A group of students, staying overnight as part of a historic preservation program, decided to explore the chapel. At 2:17 a.m., one of them wandered off from the main house, drawn toward a light coming from the chapel. He entered, and when he came back 40 minutes later, he was different. He refused to speak about what happened inside. He dropped out of the program 2 weeks later, never to return to the area. Local myths say that the chapel was built on a cursed site, one that was considered unclean by the Native American tribes who once inhabited the area. But no one can confirm this. There are no records, no burial markers, no explanation. Only patterns, and strange ones at that. Every October, on the dot, at exactly 3:12 a.m., people report seeing lights in the second story of the chapel. And the bell rings once, even though there is no bell in the chapel. And then there is the sound of a child's voice, faint but unmistakable, calling from inside. But no children are allowed inside after dusk. Some say the chapel itself is alive, that it is breathing, shifting its walls to keep whatever it holds inside locked away. One technician, who went to check for rodents, said the walls felt like skin, stretched tight over something that was not quite human. The next day, he requested a transfer. But Feltville is not the only strange place in New Jersey. There is another place, deep in the forest, where the land does not just watch you, it counts you. Welcome to Bear Swamp. Bear Swamp is a dense natural area in southern New Jersey, filled with moss-covered trees and dark, silent waters. For years, people have been avoiding it not because of what they have heard, but because of what they have not heard. There is something wrong with the air in Bear Swamp, something unnerving. It is too quiet. It is too still. And yet, people who venture into the swamp often report feeling as though they are being watched, not by anything physical, but by something else. Hunters, hikers, and campers have all told the same story. They are walking along, maybe by a patch of trees, when they catch sight of a figure standing still behind one of the trunks. At first, they think it is just another person. But as they get closer, the figure does not move. It does not flinch. It just stays there, staring at them. And when they step closer, the figure steps behind the tree silent, smooth, as if it was not even there to begin with. They check the area, no footprints, no trail. Just an eerie silence, hanging in the air. This has happened to so many people that they have started calling them the Watchers. But here's the thing, they do not speak. They do not chase. They do not seem curious. They just watch. And once you notice them, it is like they have marked you. You can feel their gaze. It is like they are counting you, checking to see if you have noticed them. But after that, they do not come any closer. They just stay at the edges of your vision, never moving, always staring. In 2005, a group of teenagers decided to go off trail and explore. They found something even more disturbing, a circle of stones, each marked with a stick figure in the center. At the heart of the circle was an animal skull, polished and marked with strange symbols. When they returned a week later to show their friends, the circle was gone. The stones had disappeared, leaving only empty ground behind. One of them refused to speak about what happened. The others, when pressed, just said, "We felt like we were being counted." Local hunters mark certain trees in Bear Swamp, but not for navigation. They mark them as warnings. 2 red slashes mean don't stop here. 3 vertical slashes mean turn around now. The locals know better than to mess with the swamp. There are whispers of strange magnetic forces at play, but that does not explain the voices. Some people hear their own names, spoken softly from just ahead, as though someone is trying to call them deeper into the trees. One park volunteer even saw a figure crouched behind a tree, only for it to stand up straight when he got closer. It was much taller than expected, and when it turned, it had no face. The volunteer ran, and he never worked in Bear Swamp again. The state refuses to acknowledge any of the strange events in Bear Swamp. No reports, no investigations, no warnings. But the locals know. They know that the swamp does not just hold secrets, it watches, waiting for the next person to wander too close. And once you have caught its attention, you might never escape. Now we have covered eerie sounds, strange figures, and places that twist space and time itself. But if you think that is where the weirdness of New Jersey ends, think again. Deep within the Pine Barrens, between Shamong and Chatsworth, there is a place that has never been officially acknowledged by anyone. It is a clearing in the forest, an area so secret, so inexplicable, that the locals have a name for it, the Unmarked Mass. It is not that the place does not exist, it does. But if you try to find it on any official map, you won't see it. You won't find it on GPS either. The land around this clearing does not match any coordinates, and the trees do not grow the way they should. The soil is wrong. It is soft, too soft, especially after a heavy rain. Almost like it is still shifting, still settling. And when the rain comes, the bones start to surface. Yes, bones. Not animal remains, but human bones. It started back in 1975 when two mushroom hunters, venturing deep into the Pine Barrens, stumbled upon a skull lodged between the roots of a fallen pine tree. No jaw, no name, no missing persons report matching it. Just a skull, cold and forgotten. The authorities took it, filed their reports, and said nothing more. That could have been the end of it, but it was not. Every few years, it happens again. Teeth, ribs, fragments of spine. Once, a child's shoe was found, buried alongside a femur. It is never in one place, never in one grave. Just scattered pieces, hidden beneath the soil, just out of reach. And when hikers or explorers go into the area, they say something feels off. As if the ground itself is watching them. No one stays too long. No one dares. There is something even stranger about this place. A feeling that people who ventured there describe as wrong. It is not just the bones that seem out of place, it is the silence. It is suffocating, pressing in on you, making it hard to breathe. Some people say they have heard things while walking through the clearing, whispers, not words, but breath, low and guttural, coming from beneath their feet. They have tried to pull free from the soft earth, but it is like the ground holds them in place, like it is not letting them go. In 1991, a state surveyor was sent to mark fire lines in the area. He came across something unusual, a depression in the earth, an area where the soil seemed unnaturally soft. His report said, found unusual depression in quadrant 6C, soil unstable, echo effect beneath surface, possible hollow. 2 days later, that section of the report was redacted. No follow-up, no investigation. It was as if the land itself had erased the evidence. Rumors circulate that this clearing was used as a dumping ground during Prohibition. Others claim it was once an off-the-books military holding area during World War II, or even a relocation camp for people after the war. But whatever its past, the bones are real. A former game warden, speaking under anonymity, said he had seen at least 3 bodies worth of remains out there. He reported it to his superior, and 2 weeks later, he was transferred to another post. Today, there is no sign of the clearing on any map. There are no trails, no paths leading to it, just miles of dense forest. The area is technically public land, but no roads reach it. No one knows the exact coordinates. And if someone does try to document it, something always erases their way back. One urban explorer, who tried using a drone to capture footage of the area, found that his signal kept cutting out. When the drone was recovered, the footage showed only the forest, but the GPS log said there was no data at all. Hikers who've made it out of the area say they return changed. They feel tired, disoriented, and sometimes they claim confused. One woman said she came back with only 20 minutes of footage on her camera, but when she played it back, there were 4 minutes she could not remember filming. In those 4 minutes, she is standing still in the clearing, looking directly into the camera, unblinking. No movement, just staring. The Pine Barrens stretch for miles, a vast expanse of trees and shadows, hundreds of forgotten roads, and dozens of untold secrets. But the unmarked mass is different. It is a place where the land itself seems to keep its dark history buried, and if you ever happen to stumble across it, you might wish you had not. Because there are things out there that were never meant to be found. Things that were buried on purpose. If you are ever in the Pine Barrens between Shamong and Chatsworth and the wind drops and the soil beneath your feet feels soft, do not dig. Don't ask questions. Don't take anything home with you. Because the clearing in the Pine Barrens was never meant to be discovered. And if you get too close, you might find that what was left there, buried for so long, was not meant to stay hidden forever. As we close this chapter of New Jersey's darkest secrets, think about what we have uncovered. Some mysteries stalk us, others whisper from the shadows, and some echo from the buildings that no longer breathe. But the most unsettling ones are the ones buried deep, hidden by those who hoped we would never find them. And sometimes, when we get too close, the ground answers back. So, the next time you hear about a place like New Jersey, do not just think of it as a state on the map. Think of it as a place where the past never stays silent, and where some things just do not want to be found.